Disney Lorcana has finally been released, and if you've gotten your hands on some cards, it's time to build a deck. But how do you build a deck, and which deck do you build? Let's dive right in. Let's start with the most basic rules for building a deck. Rule number 1, you need at least 60 cards to build your deck. There's no rule for a maximum number of cards, only a minimum of 60 cards. So if you want to go to your next tournament with 60, 70, 80 cards or more, go for it. Just make sure they are still able to shuffle your deck. Rule number 2, you can put a maximum of 4 copies of any card, so take note that for character cards, if a character has a different version, it's treated as a different card. For example, Mickey Mouse True Friend is a totally different card from Mickey Mouse Musketeer, and you can play 4 copies of both cards in your deck. Rule number 3, you can only build a deck using 2 out of the 6 inks. There are 6 different inks in Disney Lorcana, namely Amber, Amethyst, Emerald, Ruby, Sapphire, and Steel. So you need to pick a maximum of 2 out of the 6 inks. But which ink do you use for your deck? Well, each ink has their own general characteristics, but you aren't here to listen to what each ink plays like, you're here to build a deck. So to answer that question, let's put aside which ink you're going to play, and first look at the cards themselves and what brought you to Lorcana in the first place. One way to do this is to look at your favorite characters. Perhaps you're a really big fan of Princess Aurora and want to build a deck filled with Auroras. Well, all 3 Aurora cards are from Sapphire ink, which means that you definitely have to play Sapphire ink. Another way is to look into the card abilities and pick out your favorite cards in terms of what they do. Here's Stitch Rockstar, and his Adoring Fan ability lets you bring out many low-cost characters on the board, which means Amber ink would then be your main pick. Or perhaps you like Aladdin Heroic Outlaw and how he can bring you closer to winning the game while slowing down your opponent at the same time, which means Ruby would be your ink of choice. Regardless of whether you pick a favorite card or character, you now have a deck team. And from here on, it's really simple. Just fill up the 60 card slot in your deck with everything that's synergy with what you chose. And by synergy, we mean cards that work well with how you want the deck to play out. Here's an example. Let's say you decided to pick Aurora for your deck's main team as an example, since you really like the character. All Auroras are princesses, which means one way you can play this deck is to pair her with Moana of Motunui and build a princess team deck. Moana lets you ready all your other princesses when Moana quests, which means you can use your Auroras to quest or challenge, then get Moana to ready them when she quests, and your Auroras will be safe from being challenged by your opponent, or they can just challenge another time. With that combination in mind, your second ink choice is locked for Amber ink, and she'll fill your deck with only Amber and Sapphire cards, preferably with tons of princesses in the mix to make good use of Moana's ability. Another way to do this is to look at what your favorite character does or the ink that you chose and what they do well. Your strongest Aurora is Aurora Dreaming Guardian, who can give ward to all your other characters, protecting them from your opponent's abilities such as Dragon Fire. The Auroras are also all Sapphire ink, where they are the only ink currently with cards that ramp, a term used by TCG players for cards that help you speed up the amount of ink you have in your inkwell faster, like Mickey Mouse Detective and One Jump Ahead. If you have more ink in your inkwell, you'll be able to play your higher cost characters faster. So if you check the all cards list on the wiki and sort it by the cost of the card, Ruby ink has most of the highest cost characters, including the one and only 9 cost character Maleficent Monstrous Dragon, which Maleficent is kinda on theme since Maleficent and Aurora are both from Sleeping Beauty. And guess what? I just happen to have a couple of the 9 cost Maleficent which I opened earlier this week. So let's play it for our second ink today. Well, it's also because I have a decent amount of Ruby legendary cards that I decided that I should pick this for my second ink. More on building a deck with cards you have later in the video. So now we have Ruby and Sapphire confirmed for our inks of choice for today's deck. And from here on, it's pretty simple. Just keep on adding cards from Ruby and Sapphire ink into the deck that has good synergy with what you have already placed in your deck. So for example, you want more copies of your Mickey Mouse Detective, your One Jump Ahead, and also the one card that inks well is Grammatella that helps you to ramp up very fast. We also want to put in many high cost cards that will best make use of all the ink we will have, such as this 7 cost Triton, or even the 8 cost Mickey Mouse, and many more high cost characters. So with these high cost characters, Let It Go also becomes a great card to throw in the deck to handle all of your opponent's threats. With your deck strategy in mind and making sure you have a maximum of 4 copies of each card, just keep on adding cards from Ruby and Sapphire Ink until you have at least 60 cards in your deck. Don't forget you can always go beyond 60 cards if you really like a card and just want to squeeze it in no matter what you do. After you put in all the cards you want to stuff into your deck, there is one important point that you should definitely note, which is how many uninkable cards that you have. In Disney Lorcana, every card indicates the amount of ink you need to pay to play that card in the top left. Now, most of the cards have this nice bit of flourish around their cost, indicating that this card can be played from your hand into an ink well as ink. However, some of these cards only have a plain hexagon and do not have the flourish. These are cards which are often very useful to have in your deck, but in return, they pay a price for being uninkable, meaning they cannot be placed from your hand into your ink well directly as ink. You do not want too many uninkable cards in your deck since you do not want to draw too many of them at the start of a turn. If all cards in your hand are going to be uninkable, you will not be able to place any cards into your ink well, which means you will not have ink to pay for the cost of your cards. Personally, I think that in a 60 card deck, 15 uninkable cards, about 1/4 of the deck, is the limit, and you should avoid having more uninkable cards than that in your deck. Another important point to note would be the deck's curve. What I mean by the deck curve is the deck's ability to keep playing cards every single turn as the amount of your ink increase slowly every turn. So if you want a deck that can properly play cards every single turn as much as you can. For example, in turn 1 you can develop your brain, in turn 2 you can play Grammatella, in turn 3 you can play Mickey Mouse, and so on and so forth, so that you want to have a nice steady amount of cards that you can play on every single turn so that you can play your deck properly. So that and uninkable cards are the two important key points to note at the very end of building for your deck. And that is how you build your very own personal Disney Lorcana deck that you can bring to the LGS to play with your friends. In addition, if you have no issues finding cards or you just want to check out what everyone else is playing, I recommend you can check out either lorcania.com or dreamboard.ink. Both of these are deck building sites which are used by many players, and you can use it to check out what everyone else is trying out and see what's popular. And of course, if you really like something that you see, feel free to take the idea and run with it. With that said, if you take the entire deck list wholesale and just copy it to use in a deck, that's something TCG players call net decking, basically copying a deck found on the net. And I personally don't really recommend it for two reasons. First reason, I think everyone has different preferences in how they build a deck and play that deck. So even if you take someone else's deck idea, you might not know how to play it properly. And I think grabbing some ideas from what other people play is a good thing. You should play around with the deck too, like every single card that you're playing in that deck. Second reason, and most important reason for now, is because many people have issues finding Disney Lorcana product at the moment. By now, I'm sure that many of you will have heard that one of the top decks winning in events is Amethyst Ruby, where you need multiple copies of Elsa Spray of Winter, Maleficent Monstrous Dragon, and many other cards which cost a pretty penny. I don't think it's a great idea to spend a lot of money trying to buy cards for a specific deck when you don't even know if you really like the deck or, tried the deck at all. Just because it's winning an event, especially when there aren't any important big events coming up, it's not really useful at this moment of time to get the specific deck. And there's even the second set for Disney Lorcana coming out in just a couple of months. So that top deck will get changed very soon. So right now, compared to copying a deck that you see online, it would be better to just build a deck that you like with whatever cards you have on hand and just have fun playing with those decks. Once you have built a deck that you really like though, and you want to find some cards to just complete that deck, that's perfectly fine. For example, Aladdin Heroic Outlaw is a really great card to add into the deck I just built, since you can steal lore from your opponent when he banishes a character in a challenge. The problem is I currently only have a total of 2 copies, but I would really want another 1 or 2 copies to complete the deck. So what do? Well, Mushu Report has an online store partner, DisneyLorcana.store, that you should totally check out to find cards for your deck. This site does not belong to me, but it's really well done and can easily filter the singles to get all the cards that you need for your ink of choice, which is why I partnered the site. The best part is if you're based in North America, you can even get free shipping by using the code MushuReport when you're checking out your order, so go check out the site today. And that's my video guide for building your very own Disney Lorcana deck. I hope that this video has been useful to anyone building their decks, especially anyone who may be new to trading card games. This is D. Salmon from Mushu Report, signing out.